the director of delivery at Accelerant. When I say that, I mean like anything that we do post sales closure ends up becoming something that I own. So, for example, if we make a commitment to a customer through an SOW, me and my team are accountable for making sure that we see that commitment through. So, I take care of making sure that we have the right people on the project. We understand the commitments that we're making in the project, and of course, we see through them till the end. Yeah, back when I started, I think when we looked at services or projects in an agency setup, the expectation was, I mean, when I look back on it, now the expectation seems bare minimum, which is get the project done according to the scope, get the project done according to the timeline, and get the project done according to the budget. This was, and quality, of course. So these were like the bare minimum criteria that any customer would look for in the beginning, and that was the focus of the team who was working on the project as well. And yeah, so I think that is something which is evolving now, because probably meeting these 3 4 criteria is now easier than before. So for example, like before, we used to have waterfall model where we used to gather requirements. We used to take a lot of time in completing work, showing a demo to the customer. But with agile and things like CI/CD coming into play, we can deliver faster to the customer, like even weekly or in 2 weeks. Because we are able to deliver faster, the expectation from the customer is moving beyond these like 3 4 bare minimums of quality, time, budget, or scope to, okay, now you can do this faster and smoother. As always, human behavior, what else can we do more, is where things are sort of shifting. To be honest, I think I sort of noticed this change not after sales, but during the pre-sales process. I noticed a shift in terms of what customers were asking during pre-sales. So, for example, earlier customers would only say if our estimate is within their budget or no, if our scope is considering what they would want to be, what they would want to get delivered. I think at some point last year, I noticed customers asking that, hey, I want to meet the team who is going to work on the project. So I don't want to talk to the sales people, but I want to talk to the engineer who will likely work on my project, or I want to talk to the project manager who will work on my project. When we started these interactions, we noticed that customers were asking more than just 3 4 variables. They were asking things like, can you tell me how is it going to be like working with you day to day, right? How are you going to collaborate with us? What are the things that you are going to keep in mind? So I don't think scrutiny is the right word, but still there was like a lot of, we want to know you well, and want to know you more before we sort of sign off on who will do this project, or we make a decision. That was one big shift that I saw. And there would be tons of questions around, how are you going to measure, say, engineering metrics? How are you going to measure quality metrics? How are you going to measure business metrics? So there was a shift in questions that customers were asking in pre-sales. That was one sign. The other sign was the project objective has started to shift. So earlier, the project objective would, for a digital transformation project, for example, would sound like, hey, we want to migrate from X to Y, or we want to re-platform X to Y. But that project objective started talking about business impact. So for example, if we are doing a project for a higher ed institution, the project objective in the packet would read that we want to increase student enrollments. We want to increase our visibility in, say, executive education, which is a whole different way of approaching the project versus fresh students, right? Or if, for example, if we were doing a project for any brand, any retail brand, they would talk about their customer journey, how they would want to, unify that journey omni channel. So the project objective also became elevated on the why they are doing the project than just what we are going to do. So, for example, a migration is the what, a re-platforming is the what. But as agencies, we started getting visibility into why they are actually doing the project. Now, the third point is tied to this, where if they are telling us why, they expect us to be aware of the why throughout the project. So, for example, if I am doing re-platforming for a higher ed institution, they expect the delivery team to know that the project is being done keeping the student persona in mind. So if we are doing design, if we are doing SEO or AEO audits, if we are doing user journeys, we know that this user persona has to be central, and that objective is something that we have to keep in mind throughout the project, and not just dial back on saying, okay, we did this within budget, we did it on time, we did it with quality, but you know what, it did not meet the why of why we even started working on the project in the first place. So these are like 3 4 shifts that we started observing during the delivery stage to even pre-sales, and how that sort of shifted the narrative for us. I think one of the things, like I said earlier, we are able to, thanks to AI or technology, or how engineering has evolved over the years, we are able to do things faster and better. So, for example, if I have to like create a feature, earlier I used to write the requirements and it would take me, I'm just like taking a rough guess, it would take you 4 to 6 weeks. Now we even have releases every week on production. So the pace of development, or the pace of seeing things in reality, has like exponentially increased. One. Two, I think we are also reaching a stage of, in the digital transformation journey, we are reaching a stage where these technology decisions or digital transformation decisions are not just taken by a CIO or a CTO. So earlier these decisions were, so if I were buying an ERP, for example, right, my CIO or CTO would take that decisions, and they would take into consideration the cost, the ecosystem, the business side. So for example, if I'm talking of a large ERP implementation, purchase would not have a lot of say. Sales would not have a lot of say. The decision maker eventually would be a CIO or a CTO. But what happens is that when you don't have business buy-in, these projects fail, because someone has decided a certain path in the project without considering the actual user needs. So if I'm buying an ERP as a CIO or a CTO, and I have not taken into consideration how procurement works, or how my sales guy works, or how inventory management works, that whole endeavor is going to fail. And people started realizing that, which brought a shift. If you're doing a digital transformation project, it needs to be a joint collaborative decision between the business and the technology partner. So if I talk of projects we do which are largely marketing focused or martech focused, the CMOs or the marketing department started playing a big role in these decisions, right? And they see the technology or the framework not just from the lens of a CIO or a CTO, which would sometimes be security, compliance, how mature is the ecosystem, how stable is the platform. The business will look at it from a different lens. For example, it may look at, is it giving us user ease? Is there reports that we want for the business? Are they able to achieve those kind of reporting or insights? So the decision makers in the ecosystem also shifted from largely technology people to business people as well, and business people brought the why along in the journey, and that's how things are shifting. So yeah, one is like the pace at which we operate has highly exponentially accelerated, and two, these digital projects are becoming a joint endeavor between the business and the technology team, because we saw that large projects where only technology teams are taking decisions, while these projects do end up getting implemented, they don't create any business impact. And hence this shift of, okay, let's do a joint collaborative effort if we are doing something like this. Yeah, so if the buyer persona or the people making the buying decision have changed or evolved, we have to adapt to be able to speak to them. So for example, if I was running a project earlier and I was probably talking to somebody in the technology team who was driving the project, now I'm talking to a marketing analyst. Now I'm talking to a design person. Now I'm talking to somebody from operations, right? So if the delivery team at Accelerant is still speaking the same language that they were using for the technology team, we are going to sound, very off track, because the business strategy or the marketing or the ops team speaks a different language. One, two, they different things matter to them. So I'll take a very technical example. If there is a security vulnerability in the system, that say there is a call and everybody is trying to address, and if you are talking about the security vulnerability from a tech angle and not from say if I have my data team, I might say, hey, your user data may be compromised, or it could lead to challenges, or it may create wrong branding perceptions for you. So I have to translate that security vulnerability to the business team. And I can't just say that, hey, there is a security vulnerability, we have to do a patch, and use all the buzzwords, and they're going to be like, hey, hold on, while you are telling me a bunch of things, can you tell me why we need to do it now? What happens, again, the impact, what happens if we do not do this now? We have to fine tune ourselves or adapt ourselves to the buyer persona or to the customer persona that we are meeting on the other side, which is not just a product owner or a technology person, it's also a marketing analyst, it's also a designer. So because the personas on the customer side changed, at Accelerant, we started adapting to that change of persona. We started first by giving orientation of why is this even happening, because it's important to give the team context of why we are even making this shift. So the why of it is, the decision makers have changed. Digital transformation projects are being evaluated on ROI, on business impact, and hence primarily the first step that you need to take is to understand the customer's business and what are the different things driving their business. So that is the first step that we started sensitizing our teams to. So for example, if you are working on a project that is doing a lot of retail brand work, understand where their revenue is coming from, understand the industry that they are in. And I'm not saying be a consultant or a strategist for them, it's just a question of two things: curiosity and awareness. So if it's a non-profit, what are their different drivers? Donations are one of their drivers. Being able to showcase the impact that they are making through stories, through real human stories, is important. So we started with the why of, hey, there is a shift and we all need to adapt to it. Then we spoke about what the shift is, and then we spoke about how do you adopt to this shift. So for example, like one book that I recommended to most of my teams, and I think I'm still recommending, is To Sell is Human by Daniel Pink. Because I myself, I've been part of operations and project management for so long that I look at understanding the customer persona from a sales lens, and I'm like, sales is not something that I like to do, I want to do, or I'm good at doing. So I myself had that journey of, okay, selling is actually knowing and moving people. So if we are asking teams to know organizations, know people, we need to sort of destigmatize. We are not asking you to sell, we are just asking you to know your people better. Because again, people from ops are going to ask, ki, how am I going to be measured? What are going to be my KPIs? Are you going to say that, hey, I have to grow the account by X percentage? I'm like, no, I'm not asking you to do it. I'm asking you to just start with the basic simple step of knowing your customers and destigmatizing the sales aspect of it. So that's one book that we all started reading and understanding ki how do you actually decode various personas, and how do you figure out what moves them. So for example, what is important for a marketing analyst may be different for a technology person. So if you're saying the same thing, how do you say it in a different way depending on the audience or the persona that you have on the customer end? So that is something that we started doing. We also started talking about being forward deployed, which is increasingly becoming a term in the IT services and the agency business. So being forward deployed means being able to understand the customer's business, being able to understand what moves them, being able to understand how to actually create an impact for them. So we started various training programs internally to make sure that teams are aligned to the why, what, and how to sort of cope up with this change that is coming in. Honestly, the pace at which things are moving, it's very hard to say what is going to happen in a month. I mean, we can't predict, but all we can say is that, see, gathering information and getting insights and knowing stuff has become like 10x or 100x faster today. So if for example you wanted a summary of the customer and their revenue breakup or their stakeholder map, it would have taken you a while to do that. Today you can do it faster thanks to, of course, AI and all the LLMs that we have. so you have a lot of access to information. D26 is actually all maybe going to be about how are you using all that information, or how are you using your own insight on that information to drive conversations. Now, I think with the internet, it was like information asymmetry is gone and everyone has access to the same information. With AI coming in, I think it's not just information, you're also getting the same insights and you're probably getting it at x of the pace that the internet was giving you, right? So I think that's going to be key. Like, what is the human angle that you are bringing to all this, tons of information or insights that you are getting every day, and how you are picking up the cues from that information while using your own voice. And again, this is something that I see day in and day out, where while we are using AI, we are not it's not sounding like us, we are all sounding the same. So I think 2026 is probably going to need a lot of soul searching for us to really figure out what is the value add that we as humans bring to the table. Because a lot of the stuff that we were doing, AI is able to do most of it. So, what is the unique thing that we're bringing to the table? Second, from a customer standpoint, being able to see the why of why are we doing this digital transformation project. Are we doing it to, say, unify the brand experience? Are we doing it to increase student enrollments? Are we doing this to influence policy making, for example, in case of an NGO? Why are we doing this? We keep reiterating that, and we keep asking the customer and tying everything back to the why and asking, hey, we started this project out to do this. Do you think we are able to achieve this? How are you measuring that impact? Where are we in that journey? And constantly trying to think of what else can impact them positively is something that is going to be a big theme. Because you can't just like get a project, do it and be done with it. You have to engage with the customer and the stakeholders beyond the transactional routine of, you asked us to do this, we've done this. So yeah, I think it's tied to the soul searching aspect, to be honest, of what am I bringing to the table and how can I influence them to either, say, move their business impact positively in some form or the other. um, yeah, but I think it's really hard to predict what the whole year might look like. But I do feel that one theme that will stand out is how adaptable you are to change and how much you can deal with ambiguous situations and uncertainty. Because ambiguity and uncertainty are constants at this point, and your ability to deal with both is going to be tested, not just in 2026, but at least for the near future, for sure. I think what has made us good so far will still stand true in 2026, and that is we care about the outcome, for sure. And when I say we, I don't just mean the leaders on the project. I mean everybody on the delivery team cares about what they are working on and what sort of outcomes they are producing. Now, this could range from a very simple example of how are you sending, say, a Slack message to the customer? How easy are you making it for them to read through, or are you just throwing everything at them? So the intentionality of how we are interacting comes through, I believe, and that will still stand true. How we care about outcomes is going to still stand true. And the third aspect that makes us different or makes us more reliable is the transparency. I would like to believe, and this is something that I tell most teams, that I don't expect all metrics to be green and the project to be always on track. We all know that all plans don't work out, and we try our best, but then things can change because we are living in a very volatile environment where there are like various factors that are coming together in the project. But I expect us to at least be on top of the things that can go wrong and talk about them honestly rather than pretending that things are fine. So I think these are the things that will set us apart, of course, apart from the fact that while we were caring about the engineering outcomes and deliverables, we need to start also learning the business outcomes and how what we are building is being able to positively bring a change to the business of the customer. So I think that is the big focus, and we should continue doing the rest of the stuff, the intentionality, the care, the transparency. But if we are able to add to it through really truly understanding the customer's business, that is sort of going to set us apart. I think one last ending note would probably be, and I don't mean to sound philosophical, but um, ask for or bring meaning to what you are doing. I think in software engineering we've done like Jira tickets and features and things for far too long, and we've been focused just on that. So if the customer is asking me to do a user login, I will go ahead and do the user login as the customer has asked, without applying, does this make sense to the customer, should I be doing this differently? So find meaning, or strive for meaning in your work, because while AI is able to do, like if you are using Cursor and Claude, you are probably giving prompts to Cursor and Claude and waiting for it to compile and finish. So while you are waiting, probably look for the meaning in what you are doing, because the rest of the grunt work our friend AI might do already. So I think that's probably something that I would say, not just for delivery teams at Accelerant, but in anything that we do. Finding that meaning and impact in the work that we do is going to be critical.